Would you believe me if I said that 6 months ago we were anticipating a Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving-led Brooklyn Nets team heading to Milwaukee on opening night to take on the Bucks, and that both of those stars would be later traded? Would you believe me if I said 6 months ago on the same day we were anticipating the defending champs Golden State Warriors were facing the Russell Westbrook edition of the Los Angeles Lakers, which he was also traded, and to the in-state rival at that. Shout out to the Clippers. But with two 71-point performances in the books, as well as many other crazy scoring outbursts this season, on top of maybe the craziest MVP race we've ever seen in league history, through months and months, stories on stories, trades on trades, we're finally here at the close of the NBA regular season, and it's time to hand out some awards. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you feeling heading into the weekend?
I feel real good. The NBA has been crazy lately, wrapping up the season. A lot of loose ends that still need to be cleaned up, but it's an exciting time.
One of the most exciting seasons for me, I think, especially as a Cavs fan. But this is your early reminder that if you do enjoy what you're seeing or hearing, go ahead and support us down below. Like, comment, subscribe. We're over on TikTok and YouTube Shorts as well. We dropped some early content there yesterday, so you got to be following those to see that exclusive content. But without further ado, I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Let's get into straight into the awards. We don't have any news today. We're going to hop straight into it. The MVP of the league. Go ahead and kick us off with your top three.
So my MVP winner and front runners are Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think there is any, that there have been the most consistent three this year. Maybe early season there are a few different people, but those are my three.
Same three here. There's no other top three in the league. And I will say this before we, continue on with these awards, is that these are awards that we're not predicting who's going to get it. We're saying if we had a vote, this is my vote.
Yeah.
For you, your number one vote is Joel Embiid. I'm going to have to agree with you. We flip here at 2 and 3, though. I do have Giannis. Up until about an hour before the show, I think I had Giannis as my MVP winner, which might come as a shock to a lot of people, right? Because Jokic is playing it better, or on the same level at least, that he has the last 2 years. The Nuggets are the number one seed. They clinched that already. The Bucks have the best record in the league. It's just Joel Embiid. This year, unfortunately, if you remember Rudy Gobert at that All-Star game, he was crying because, he didn't get an All-Star appearance. The next year, and the next couple years, he was an All-Star almost every time.
Yeah.
And he cried about the Depoy Award. He got the Depoy Award. Not to say that Rudy Gobert wasn't a great defender, but it's a tendency, I'll say this, that if players do cry about not getting an award, they are typically given that award if they're in the running, right? And for me, I would give the award to Joel Embiid. It's a very close race between him and Giannis, but Joel Embiid, just with how dominant he's been this year, he could say all he wants. He doesn't care about the award, but he sure plays like he does, and that's why he's my number one. I mean, Giannis and Jokic, very close. You can go either way here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When you just watch Joel Embiid play, his dominant. I have Jokic as my number two, and the way Jokic and Joel Embiid dominate the game is drastically different. Obviously, their teams are set up different to suit their play styles. The Philadelphia went out and got James Harden to help that kind of pick and roll dynamic between a guard and a big and Joel Embiid, and the dynamic big at that. While the Nuggets went and just got a team full of basically shooters around Jokic because they knew that he could be a dominant presence in the inside when he wanted to, especially on the boards, and he's an elite playmaker. But when you watch Joel Embiid, when he's really going, when he's really dominating a game, there really doesn't look like there's a better player than him, because this is a 7'2", 200, almost 300-pound guy who is shooting threes, shooting the mid-range. He's doing the Hakeem Dream Shake. He's dominating in the paint. And his defense is definitely been a lot more consistent this year. This race kind of reminds me of, I think it was 2018 or 2019 race between James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo, where it was like, oh, who's your MVP? James Harden. Who's your MVP? Giannis. This is what that race feels like, and I'd give it to Joel Embiid. Like I said, his team, he doesn't have the same talent, I think, top through bottom that the Nuggets have. That's not a fault to his. It's just the way the teams are built around their dominance. And Joel Embiid has proved that he can carry a team throughout the full course of the season.
Not that I didn't know that Joel Embiid was a very talented player. I'm not that slow, right? But for me, I wasn't sold on him. Maybe it was the playoff success that he's had in his career. Maybe it's just the injuries. But for me, he's always been a player outside of the top five. He's always been a 5 to 10 player. And a lot of people were always saying, hey, he's a top 5 player. I didn't see that, right? I thought other players were better. Now, after this season, it's kind of hard not to have him there. And for me, forever, or I think for the next couple of years, he's going to be a top 5 NBA player, to me at least. But, I mean, he's already under a lot of pressure, especially going into this playoffs where he hasn't had a lot of playoff success. It's when do we point the finger at Joel Embiid compared to just putting it on James Harden, which might happen again this season. But especially if he gets the MVP, there's going to be even more pressure on him to not only get out the first round, but to go at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. And has he been out the first round?
They went to the Eastern Conference Finals with Jimmy Butler, Game 7,
against Kawhi Leonard, or the semifinals, because
no, that was conference finals.
I thought it was the semis. It was the semis. Second round of the playoffs. Basically, I thought it was because Kawhi ended up playing against the Bucks.
You know what? It might have been. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Regardless, I'm just saying that Joel Embiid's under a lot of pressure to me, and if you get an MVP, that's going to even higher the expectation for you. So hopefully, he could back it up and win a couple playoff series here.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts here? I mean, Giannis, Jokic, they're great players. I mean, Jokic, he's averaging a triple-double, shooting 65%, 39 from 3. You can't go wrong with Jokic. He's played even better, probably, than he has the last 2 MVP years. On and off court numbers. Advanced statistics, I'm going to say, he blows everybody out the water. I think defensively, in advanced statistics, he's better than Giannis and Joel Embiid, by far. Right now, the eye test might say a little different, maybe a lot different, but Jokic, advanced statistics-wise, he blows these guys out the water.
Yeah, I think most people know that you can use advanced statistics if you want, but sometimes you have to put them in perspective. Not saying that Jokic obviously isn't a great player, but we know when something says defensively, and we see Jokic giving up a layup line some nights, we obviously know that the impact may not be the same as obviously Giannis, who guards 1 through 5, or Joel, who could guard pretty much only 4 and 5s, but he's more dominant in the paint. But, I was also going to mention that, to me, this also might be Joel Embiid's his worst case at an MVP than the past 3. I feel like, that first year he probably should have got it, and you could have even made the argument last year. Obviously, Jokic and Joel Embiid, they've only stepped their game up over the past 3 years, and that's what makes this race so crazy, considering that these guys have been 1 and 2 the past 3 years.
I will say that you mentioned the layup lines joke about Jokic there, but there was that stat that said that he's given up the most layups at the rim out of any player in the league all season. I mean, it makes sense because of how many minutes he plays, but still giving up the most layups at a center position, it is concerning. I don't think that's the sole reason why he's number 2 and 3 in our rankings, but it's definitely a part, right? The defense. And Giannis, for me, I mean, it just went with the narrative that 1 month in, I'm going to say it. I said this was the best Bucks team of all time, and Giannis was by far the best player in the league. So I went with that narrative. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the league. Giannis is averaging 31. What is he averaging? 31, 12, and 6. I mean, over 50% from the field. Giannis has been dominant, like we know he could be. Yeah. And when you're the best player in the league on the most dominant team in the league, it's kind of hard to not have that case for being an MVP frontrunner. But it's just one of those years where I think Embiid is going to get it in a notch over Giannis.
Right.
I think the vote might be closer than people think. I think right now it's kind of a two-headed race where it's Jokic and Embiid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis passes one of those guys.
Yeah, I know they just said Joel was a heavy favorite as of like last night or something like that. So I mean, that obviously, even if he's favorited, I agree with you. There could be a leap of Giannis over Jokic, especially because Giannis he's coming off a stretch of games where he's been playing out of his mind too. So yeah, I mean, anything's possible.
Well, moving over to the DPOY, the Defensive Player of the Year, we have the same top 3 of Brook Lopez, Evan Mobley, and Jaren Jackson. The 2 and 3s are flipped, but we both share Brook Lopez at the number 1 position, averaging about half a steal, 2.5 blocks a game, number 6 in the league in defensive win shares. Why is Brook Lopez so dominant? Why do you think that he is the MVP frontrunner, maybe, or a DPOY frontrunner over a Giannis?
I think it just has to be with maybe consistency or dominance in which he does it. Once again, it's almost like you can use the same example between him and Joel Embiid. It's like, how good are they at what they do, and how consistently do they do it. And just like Joel Embiid with scoring, 34, 35 points a game, Brook Lopez seems to always get his 2 to 3 blocks a game. And I watch the Cavs almost every single game, and I can tell you when Brook Lopez is out there, it's like the guys don't even want to go in the paint. It's like you're playing just perimeter basketball, trying to pass it around and get an open jump shot, which may not be the case versus the other two. And I don't know. That's why I give it to Brook Lopez.
It's got to be dangerous when you have a guy like Giannis who can guard 1 through 5. He's the greatest help defender in the league. And then you have the big Statue of Liberty there in the middle with Brook Lopez, who, like you said, it changes teams' game plans, right, as far as attacking the rim. And it's Brook Lopez, to me, aside from just defense, he's one of the most inspirational players of all time. That might sound crazy, but it's just for any player out there at any level, if your play style is not working, you can always change your play style and be great at the new play style and make a long career out of it, right? You don't have to be a superstar like he was in Brooklyn. You can revamp your game, be one of the best role players in the league, and he's won a championship with the Bucks, might be on his way to number 2, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
But Evan Mobley, for me, the stats, nothing would tell you that he's better than Jaren Jackson in any sense of it. He's still averaging a steal, a block and a half a game, and he's at my number 2 spot here. It's just because the Cavs, look, we expected them to have a jump this year, maybe be the 4 or 5 seed, but I don't think we expected them to have 50-plus wins. I don't think we expected them to look as dominant, or as good as they have, rather. Not dominant, but good. And Evan Mobley's really taken that step up, I guess, getting closer to that Tim Duncan projection that some people have set for him. I'm not going to put that on him because Tim Duncan's arguably a top 10 player of all time. But Evan Mobley's definitely taken strides offensively, defensively this year. And I think if he doesn't get the DPOY this year, he's probably going to get it next year.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Mobley is just one of those players. It's his growth, because I remember at the beginning of the season, the fans were kind of like, well, where's the step that Evan Mobley was supposed to have taken over the summer? And it did take him a while. I think obviously when you get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, it takes a whole team a while to get acclimated and accustomed to playing with a superstar like that. But once they got going around January, February, Evan Mobley looked like a completely different player. He got more confident. They always say that I guess there was a game early in the season where he got dominated in the paint, and they said that every game, every day, he's in the weight room at some time, and you can see that confidence building on the court. And it not only has his offense gotten better, but his defense, he played his way into the Defensive Player of the Year race. And it's one of those things where you just got to look at the eye test. The eye test tells you that that Evan Mobley can guard a 6'3" guard if he needs to, or he can guard a 7'2" big in contest shots and get the defensive rebound, all while playing the 4 next to another paint protector in Jared Allen. Going into Jaren Jackson Jr., he's a dominant shot blocker. He does his job really well. Obviously, with him, the question may be, can he guard, 1 through 5 like Evan Mobley, or can he lock down the paint just like Brook Lopez? While he gets really good contests and blocks, can he do all those things? Obviously, the stats will tell you, yes, he's really good at that. But, I have him second on my list just because Brook Lopez, he's really changed his style, and he is the true definition of a defensive anchor.
Like you mentioned, statistically, it's all there for Jaren Jackson. Yeah. On and off numbers, he kills both of these guys as far as his defensive impact and how great the Grizzlies' defense is when he's on the court compared to off. I mean, he's averaging 3 blocks a game. We had the theory that there was a stat padding situation there early in the season, but he's definitely proven, whether if he's home or away since that allegation, he has definitely stepped it up, right? His defensive rating, he's the best one on this list. He's number 5 in the league in defensive rating, number 5 in the league in defensive win shares. Jaren Jackson's amazing. Jaren Jackson is one of those guys that, can anchor defense, but again, he's not as versatile as Evan Mobley, but he's not as stagnant as a Brook Lopez, so it's very interesting. I could see him snagging this award away. Yeah. Just saying with all the stuff that's been going on with the Grizzlies this year, they're still a top 2 seed, and I could see him easily taking this award from Brook Lopez, but I think we're both set on Brook Lopez here.
Yeah.
Moving over to the rookies, the young guys here, we both have pretty much the same list. Two different names here, but my top 3 are Paolo Banchero, Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Walker Kessler. For me, Paolo, I think we both have him at number 1, averaging 27 and 4, showing signs to a young Carmelo Anthony. Paolo Banchero, he's really that guy for Orlando. I think, they've had this revolving door of just having multiple draft picks, bringing in new guys. They thought Jalen Suggs might have been that guy. He's not.
He's not.
They've brought in a lot of young talent over the years. And I think they finally found the one. I think they finally found the guy that they can give the keys to. Is he going to be maybe a superstar in this league? I think it's too early to tell, but Paolo Banchero's definitely taken a great... I think he's blown my expectations out the water. I had him as my rookie of the year, but I didn't think he was going to be as good as he is. He had the rough February there shooting the ball, but he's bounced back since that point. He's back up to 30% from the three-point line, which is not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's way better than where he was. I mean, I think he shot 1 of 30 in February from the three.
133 or something crazy.
If he can ever develop that outside shot, right now he already has the mid-range and the back down and the physical force to get to the rim. But if he can ever get that outside shot down, he's going to be a dangerous player and a top player in the league for years to come.
Yeah, so my list is Paolo Banchero, Benedict Mathurin, and Jalen Williams. Again, now going to Puelo, his I guess development since college alone needs to be talked about, because I remember in Duke when I watched him, he would step outside the paint, he would face up, every now and then, but it felt like most of his shots were coming in the paint because he was so much bigger and stronger than most of the people he was going up against. He could back them down, get whatever he wanted, especially in that block area right out inside the mid-range there. But, this season, I've seen a different side of him, especially in play style, whether it's, taking the ball up, handling the ball, his mid-range shot already for most people don't even have this type of mid-range shot for their careers. The fact that he's a rookie and can get, those Carmelo-type shots is insane. Yeah, the shooting percentage may not be there, but the degree of shots that he's taking is crazy. And, obviously, when you're a rookie, you're going to go through months where there's a slump. Could he get better on defense? Maybe so, but even then, it's not like he's a slouch by any means on that side. And when you say giving the keys to a player, he really is just what they needed. He's helped guys like Markelle Fultz grow his game, Bull, Franz Wagner. He's helped everybody on that team grow just by his presence of being there and being that go-to guy that they know they're going to get the ball to. And it's really good to see.
Yeah, in a way, it allows those guys that are year 2, year 3 players that haven't had the full opportunity yet to. If there's all the attention on Paolo Banchero, it gives them more freedom, right? Yeah. Maybe they have a lesser defender on them, like Franz Wagner. He has lesser defenders on him than he did last year.
Right.
So that gives him more opportunity to get in his bag, do what he needs to do offensively. And there's other players like you mentioned, like Bull and other young talent on this team that, with lesser defenders or just focus elsewhere, they're able to get their shots off. They're able to, I guess, improve their game on the court and build confidence.
Yeah.
But a guy I had here, I had Jalen Williams. We both had him on our list. He's definitely made an okay case to maybe steal this award on a bad day from Paolo Banchero. But I think far and away, Paolo's number one. For Jalen Williams, though, 14 points, 4.5, 3, a steal and a half for the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have been one of the most surprising teams this year, maybe the most surprising team. As what are they, the 9th seed, 8th seed?
I think they're the 8th seed.
Right now, they're one of those, but they're going to be a play-in team, and that's a big jump for a team that is just purgatory of just being terrible and just constantly bringing in new draft picks. But Jalen Williams, he's going to be a great player for years to come. It's not his year. He's going to be a good player. He's just not on Paolo Banchero's level.
Yeah, and in my second, I have Ben Mathurin. They have him coming off the bench. He's been a sixth man for the entire year. And that recipe actually seemed like it was working, especially when Tyrese Halliburton was in the lineup and they were in contention for that play-in spot. It really just suits. He's able to come off the bench. He's able to get any type of shot he wants. He's averaging 17, 4, a steal and a half, which is really good. Especially any other year you could make the argument he could be a sixth man of the year, and he's only a rookie. Which when you can do that, that's really good. Do I think he's going to develop into maybe a multiple-time All-Star or, a star on that level? I don't know. Maybe this is what he's supposed to be for his career. But the fact that he's able to, step into this role as a rookie, a lot of times most rookies can't accept this type of role. So I really like his play style, and it's kind of crazy because, I don't know, at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't have had these two following Paolo Banchero. I would have had Jabari Smith and Jaden Ivey, but, first of all, I don't want to go on another Rockets slander. Rockets need to get up this true point guard. And Jaden Ivey, I don't know. he's shown flashes here and there, but it just seems like, sometimes his IQ and shot selection, as well as ball security, kind of takes a toll on him.
First off, I can't believe I've gotten 20 minutes into this episode, but welcome to episode 50 of the Anomaly Podcast, right? But I bring that up because in episode 2 of this podcast's history, I did a preview of this NBA season. I did my predictions for the finals, my award predictions, and in my Rookie of the Year predictions, I had Paolo winning it. I had Keegan Murray being number 2, and I had Jaden Ivey being my number 3 there. And you just talked about him, but obviously I didn't expect Cade to go down. But I didn't expect this. Nowhere on my radar was Jalen Williams.
No.
Benedict Mathurin was an outside shot to win it for me, but these guys were not on my list. And especially my third was not on my list at all. I barely even knew who Walker Kessler was. He's my number 3 here, center for the Utah Jazz, averaging 9 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. Nothing that's going to blow you out the water, but he's a very serviceable big for this Jazz team that had no expectations. Everyone expected them to tank, get Victor Wembanyama, and build for years to come. Nobody expected a guy that we're going to talk about later, Lauri Markkanen, to take the leap that he has. Nobody expected him to be an all-star starter the way that he was. But this Jazz team, one of the most exciting teams in the league, or surprising teams in the league, the Cinderella story for sure. Walker Kessler played a big part.
Yeah, and he's the perfect paint protector and inside presence next to Lauri Markkanen, who's more of a perimeter player, especially this year. Like you said, I when he got traded in that Rudy Gobert trade, I didn't know who he was. I didn't think he was going. I thought it was going to be. I can't remember his name, but the Timberwolves traded for somebody like that a while back, and he never even got an opportunity. I thought that was just pretty much what it was going to be. It was like Walker Kessler. I mean, who cares? I mean, the big names in this are like Malik Beasley and Rudy Gobert.
6 first-round picks.
Yeah, exactly. But this just proves that the Jazz have that ability to find gems, and if they can keep doing this, especially with the 6 first-round picks they get from the Timberwolves, they are really going to be a threat out in the West.
Moving over to the 6th man of the year, these are guys that can make or break championship teams or contending teams. My top 3, I have Bobby Portis, Malik Monk, and Malcolm Brogdon. Starting here with Bobby Portis, we both have him in the top 2. For me, he's averaging 14-10, assist and a half, 50% from the field. Right now, I think this is his best year, as a member of the Bucks team. He begged his team to re-sign him 2 years ago. They did just that. And he's going to be one of the most important X factors for this Bucks team in this playoff run here. As Bobby Portis, he can stretch out and let Giannis or whoever attack the paint, be on the inside. While Bobby Portis, he can be on the inside, he can be on the outside. He can guard 3 through 5. And he's just one of those players that you just need on a championship team. Those dirty work players like a PJ Tucker that is just going to do all the dirty work. He's going to do what you ask him to do. And for Bobby Portis this year at a career level.
Yeah, and my top 3 are Emmanuel Quickley, Bobby Portis, and Malcolm Brogdon. When I made this list the first time around, I did have Bobby Portis, and I can't remember who I had second, but I did have Emmanuel Quickley. Then I can't remember what I was doing, but then I remembered. I was like, oh, yeah, Emmanuel Quickley. He's taken a huge leap this year, especially once Tom Thibodeau kind of changed the New York Knicks lineup around and kind of shortened the rotation and took guys out. Once they, took away Derrick Rose's minutes, it's given Emmanuel Quickley his time to shine. His stats aren't anything crazy, 14, 4, and 3. Steal, he's shooting pretty much 45% from the field and 36% from 3. But it's more so its impact that he has in that second unit with the New York Knicks. His ability to step up when Jalen Brunson goes down. There are those games, or especially the one that comes to mind is the double overtime game versus Celtics a couple of weeks back where he had like 36. He just had 30 points with 5 threes. Him, Obi Toppin, and Quentin Grimes did the other night. Emmanuel Quickley, he's a really serviceable backup point guard. We've known that he's been kind of a streaky type of player since his rookie year, but this year, he's been that perfect backup point guard that this Knicks team has needed to help them push for this 5 seed that they just secured.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some quick research here into looking to who I had for the 6th man of the year heading into the season. But at our number 3 spots, both of us had Malcolm Brogdon. Arguably, I could see him winning the award. He's averaging 15, 4, and 4. 50% from the field, 45 from 3 basically. Beginning of the year, I think he might have been my 6th man of the year. When he started his career with the Bucks, he was that 6th man, and he played great in that role, right? As one of those on those surprising Milwaukee Bucks teams. And then he got paid. And then he got paid the $80+ million from the Indiana Pacers. And he was, he's okay. But I think being back to a lesser role here where he can strive, being a better, because I think he's not as good as the Damian Lillards of the league and the star point guards. So as a starting point guard, he doesn't look like the greatest player. But when you put him on the bench, I think he's better than 90% of the bench players in the league. And he's back to striving in that role. And I think right now on a team that's the clear 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, a team that he could very well win a championship. Malcolm Brogdon's going to play a big part in that. He's a two-way player, and he's a big reason that why he stepped up. Recently in the last month he stepped up with Marcus Smart's injuries. But when the team's at full health, he's going to be 6-man, and it's going to be very dangerous for the Celtics team because they're very deep.
Yeah, and when they brought in Brogdon, they brought in Danilo Gallinari as well with them. We all know he tore his ACL playing in the I think, what was it, FIBA?
Right before the season.
And, that was a huge blow to them. That was supposed to be their 1-2 punch off the bench, especially because Danilo Gallinari last year for the Hawks, he was really good. But Malcolm Brogdon has picked up the slack of 2 people this year. Like you mentioned, he's really stepped up in Marcus Smart's absent. And I think his ability, his versatility in different lineups, I think that's what gives him, a really good chance to win this award is because you can put him next to Marcus Smart and let him run the 2 or the 1, and you kind of have those 2 guards who are really good on defense, kind of lock up your opposing point guards. Or you can have him, run your 1, and you can have Jaylen Brown out there, right? It's still defense, which you have scoring in Jaylen Brown, you have shooting in Malcolm Brogdon, which is a great mix. Like you said, he just brings so much to this Celtics team who want to win a championship this year, who want to prove that last year was not a fluke year for them. And Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a key piece in that.
Side note here, sidetrack. We're going to get back to the 6th man of the year, but just so you guys know, I am not a fraud, right? I do watch the game of basketball, but I did have Ben Simmons as my depoy heading into the year. Him and Bam, they're not in my top 3, right now, but both of those guys I had high expectations for, especially Ben Simmons, and safe to say he disappointed. For 6th man of the year, coming into the year, I had Jordan Poole. I didn't expect Steph Curry to go down and Jordan Poole to play so many starter minutes, especially with Andrew Wiggins out as well. Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero. I had Bones Highland as a candidate there, and as well as Malcolm Brogdon. But is Malik Monk. Malik Monk light the beam. He's a member of that Sacramento Kings team that has shot out of nowhere. They're now a top 3 seed in the West. They're the best team in that stacked Pacific division over there in the Western Conference. And a lot of they're one of the most. I guess they're one of the most team. They're the team that we have to watch out for most in the playoffs. Are they gonna fold under pressure, being the young team that they are, or are they going to play like they have all season long and be that number 1 offense in NBA history that they have been to this point? And
they could very well end up like that Phoenix Suns team from a couple years back, going to the finals in one trip.
Right. I mean, it could very well happen. I mean, they have the leader in clutch points in the league in De'Aaron Fox. They have a lot of veterans. I mean, they are a relatively younger team, but they still have a lot of veterans. They picked up Keegan Murray this year, which he broke some records we talked about last week. Keegan Murray, he's one of my favorite rookies in this class, but overall, top down, this Phoenix Suns, or not Phoenix Suns, you have me thinking about them now, but the Sacramento Kings team is going to be a very fun team to watch, and Malik Monk, he's got about the same production he had last year with the Lakers, surprisingly, but he's doing it at a higher level this year, if it makes any sense, right? But moving over to the Most Improved Player Award, I had Lauri Markkanen, we mentioned him earlier. We both have the same top 3, but I'm going to start here with Lauri Markkanen. As we mentioned, I mean, he's up 11 points per game, 3 rebounds. He's up 4.5% from the three-point line and the field goal percentage. Lauri Markkanen, he's improved in every statistical category across the board from last season. We had questions. Was it going to be Colin Sexton? Was it going to be another young piece on this team, or was it going to be Lauri Markkanen? It was Lauri Markkanen that stepped up and was that guy for Utah this year. As we mentioned a couple times on this podcast, that there was no expectations for this Jazz team. After trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, 2 All-Stars, and then you trade your glue guys along the way like Bojan Bogdanovic. You trade Royce O'Neal. This team had no expectations. We expected them to tank. And even though they might not make the play-in, I mean, we can't forget that first month of the year that they were at the top of the seeding, right? But Lauri Markkanen, he's played amazing this year. He's an all-star starter for a reason. and he's my most improved player.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Lauri Markkanen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Jalen Brunson. Everything you just said about Lowry, I completely agree with you. As a Cavs fan last year, I wanted this guy gone so bad because this guy he would have a game where he'd shoot 4 of 6 from 3, play really good on the inside. He was never really good at defense, but he'd do what you want out of your starting 3. And then he'd have about 15 games following where he was just really bad, where you just were like, man, he's got to go. And he actually played really good in our last play-in game versus Atlanta Hawks last year. But I did not see any of this coming. We all know he played really good over in the FIBA Cup. But once again, I really just thought that was just a different role on that team. And he really stepped forward. I think playing on the perimeter last year really helped him this year. Evolved his skills. And I'm really happy for him. Going into
really quick before you move on, maybe that FIBA Cup was all the confidence that Lauri Markkanen needed to take that next step.
Yeah.
I will say that as a Cavs fan, I agree. I did want him gone, and for what we got for him, it wasn't the best what we got for Lauri Markkanen, but I'm happy that he's striving and he's finally found hopefully a place to stay for years to come. But go ahead and kick us off with your number 2.
Yeah, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It was really tight for me between Lauri Markkanen and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But, the only reason I didn't give it to Shai is because we've seen flashes of his ability before in the past. It's been, the first thing that comes to mind is that first year when Oklahoma City had Chris Paul. We saw how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be with another playmaker or ball handler, especially an elite one like Chris Paul was. And they made the playoffs, played the Houston Rockets, went to 7 games in the bubble. Ever since then, Shai's kind of struggled with injuries, but he's been really good when he's been on the court. This year, he's been able to stay on the court more. Josh Giddey has also taken a bit of a step up, and he's been that other ball handler that this team needed. Shai, he's, for a while, he was actually leading the NBA in clutch points. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox has overthrown him, but Shai is really good in the clutch. He steps into the moment. No moment is ever too huge for him, and he's really consistent. I'm just really impressed with Shai, and I'm glad that he's able to, get the recognition he deserves this year. Hopefully, Chet Holmgren can come back next year, and they can hit in the draft and be a good team next year as well.
There's the picture surfaced about Chet Holmgren that he's put on some muscle. I'm just going to leave it at that, right? You guys are going to have to go see the pictures. But the formula that the NBA has been using the last couple of years, it's a player that was an okay player, but then he shot to all-star stardom, right? For example, last year with John Morant, right? He was he's a starter, but then he was an all-star member, right? And that this year, the category or that I guess philosophy or formula would work for 2 of these players here. Should have worked for all 3.
Mm-hmm.
Lauri Markkanen is an all-star starter, first-time all-star this year. Shai, same thing. He wasn't a starter, but he was a first-time all-star. And Jalen Brunson, he should have been an all-star, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the way he's been playing recently. But all 3 of these guys, I have Jalen Brunson at my 2. We talked about him a little bit. Same thing with Shai. Both of these guys are very deserving to be in this position, and they're both on teams that have been very surprising. The Knicks
suits
team
them well.
Right, exactly. Playing exactly to the title of the award. But moving over to the Coach of the Year. We both have Mike Brown at number 1. My number 2, though, is J.B. Bickerstaff, coach of the Cavaliers. Can't believe I'm putting him there because I despise him as a coach, but we'll get into that in just a second. And Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla is going to round out my list. Who is your number 3?
I have Mike Budenholzer. But he was supposed to be fired that year that the Bucks accidentally won the championship. So, or I say accidentally because he was to be gone.
If he didn't win it, he was gone for sure.
Yeah.
But Mike Brown is our number 1 coach. Look, this team was 30-52 last year. As we speak today, they're 48-31. Their offensive rank has moved up 23 spots, and their defense has moved up 3 spots. They have the number 1 offense in the league, the best offense of all time. And Mike Brown, he's ended the 16-year playoff drought for the Sacramento Kings. You can't say enough about him.
Yeah. Going into Joe Mazzulla, he's taken over this Boston Celtics team that still had that Ime Udoka identity. And they still have a lot of same philosophies that they had last year, but they're better offensively this year. They've dropped this year in defense, but that was because they were number one last year. Right. When you're a rookie head coach and you're a young head coach at that, you're coming into a team where they missed everybody on that Celtics team missed Ime Udoka. What he brought to the locker room, he was more of a commander. He put more fear into their hearts. Last year, we all remember the Celtics didn't necessarily start off good, and they ended the season really, really great. That went all the way into the playoffs. This year, the Celtics started off a lot better. Their record isn't, they were 51-31 last year, 54-25 this year. So far, exactly, with the end of the season coming up. But this, he's been able to help Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown take steps in their game when they were already really good last year.
Yeah.
So credit to Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, it didn't look possible for those guys to take a step. And they're top 5 in offense and defense this year. He's definitely got a strong argument.
Yeah.
But moving over to the questionable award here I have is JB Bickerstaff. This team has improved by 6 wins from last season so far this season. Our offense has moved up 13 spots, and we are now the number 1 defense in the game of basketball for some time now. I think for about a month here. We're the number 1 defense. We were top 5 last year, but we're number 1 now, and that means a lot more. But JB Bickerstaff, he has very questionable rotations, very questionable timeouts, very questionable everything, right? Sometimes he would just... It's like he forgets he's the head coach of a team and he's a fan, and he gets too caught up in the game that, sometimes he'll forget to call a timeout or make the right adjustment to help us win these games late. Because out of these 30 wins, I want to say 5 to 10 of them have been just coaching mistakes and have just been like late game adjustments that we didn't make.
If you take the blown leads we've had as Cavs fans going into the fourth quarter of even 5-point leads with 1 minute left in the game, we would be a 60-win team. And like you said, he gets caught. Jalen Brunson, when he dropped 48, I think that another happened. He was just like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep letting, I can't even remember who was guarding him, get cooked every possession. But go ahead.
No, it's the only reason I have him here is, look, the Cavs, we were the 9th seed last year with all the injuries and COVID that we had. We slipped to the 9th seed. We were promising last year. Some circumstances happened and we slipped. Obviously fell short in the play-in, but this year, I think this team is better than I could have imagined this year. Even though we brought in Donovan Mitchell, I figured it would take maybe a year to gel. Or maybe we would catch our stride second half of the year. But this team, from day one to now, has been very solid. It's the first playoff appearance for this team without LeBron James on it since 1998. So we're finally known for something other than LeBron James, right? But JB Bickerstaff, the only reason he's here is he's gotten this team to a spot where I believe we could be a sneaky contender.
Yeah.
Moving over to our all-NBA teams. Again, I just want to preface this, even though we're 37 minutes in. We are doing this based off who we would give the award to. We did take into account, how many games have they played, their stats, the records with them and without them on their respective teams. But these are just people who we would give the awards to. And we're going to kick it off here we have the same first team.
Yeah.
We have the same exact first team. And that's only because I made a late game adjustment. I did have Steph Curry as a guard here, but I switched it to Donovan Mitchell. Is that biased? Maybe, but this is my ballot, and that's who I would give the award to. Sometimes bias does play a part in it. But of course we have the 3 MVP frontrunners for the both of us: Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic in the front court. I have Luka and Donovan Mitchell in my backcourt. All these players are great. I guess the only question mark here is Luka. But Luka is, to me, a top 5 player in the league. Yeah,
I agree with you. Originally, when I made my ballot, I had Jaylen Brown in here next to Donovan Mitchell. The only reason I moved Jaylen Brown down was because I couldn't in good conscience put Jaylen Brown in first team knowing Jason Tatum deserves to be there over him. And Luka, he still has the argument to make first team despite team success. It hasn't been Luka's fault. When before the Kyrie trade, they were 5th in the West, and Luka was carrying them. But I think that team had only won 1 game where Luka hadn't played, and I can't even remember who they played. But it was such a huge deal because
probably the Rockets.
It might have been because the deal was, can this team win a game when Luka has to miss some time with an injury?
Can they win a game without him dropping 30?
Exactly. And so far the answer has been no. Last night it took Kyrie and Luka Doncic dropping 30 apiece pretty much to beat the Sacramento Kings and keep their playoff chances alive. To me, Luka, like you said, he's a top 5 to 8 player in the league.
He's top 5.
Yeah, and depending on who you ask, but I agree with you. Luka, he deserves to be here. His team success does not reflect his success this season.
Moving over to the second team, for my guard spots, I have De'Aaron Fox, like the beam. I never thought I'd say that here at the beginning of the season. Steph Curry, our greatest shooter of all time. He was very close to being on my first team despite missing a ton of games this season. Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, LeBron James round out my second team. Go ahead and read yours off, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Yeah, I have Shai Gilgeous.
You'll get it.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I got to take it slow.
Right.
Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Anthony Davis.
My only question for you here would be Jimmy Butler. Just saying that he's not a regular season player. This Heat team is, I guess, since being the 1 seed last year, in some people's minds, underperformed. Why is Jimmy Butler second team All-NBA?
Jimmy Butler is second team All-NBA to me because, if you take Jimmy Butler off of this Heat team doesn't even, they're a lottery team. They're competing for Wembanyama. Jimmy Butler has shown his frustration with the team. He feels like he's had to do way too much to keep this team competitive. They're pretty much all but locked into it. They're kind of waiting on the net season to end, but, it looks like they're going to be a play-in team. And like you said, this team has underperformed, especially off of last season. But just like last season, you can't blame Jimmy Butler this year for what they've had. Like you've mentioned it before, they've had the worst 5 through 12 in the league. They don't really have anybody to name other than Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, and those two can come and go when they want. Jimmy Butler this season has been the one consistent piece. If he hasn't had to miss time, he has been the one that has been winning games for the Heat, offensively and defensively. That's why I believe he deserves at least a second team ballot.
Yeah. If I told you that you had a team in the Eastern Conference that had 3 20-point per game scores, you would think that they were a top 3 seed.
Yeah.
But they're not. That's the Heat. Because
Exactly.
after that 20 points per game, it goes to Kyle Lowry, who's averaging probably 8 right now this season.
Maybe
right?
3.
Right. And it's that Heat team. It's Jimmy Butler, to have them to this point is amazing, even though they're like the 7 seed, right?
Yeah.
But Jason Tatum, we talked about him, the best player in the Celtics, and that's as crazy as it sounds, it is a debate, with Jaylen Brown. But
exactly.
Jason Tatum, some would say he's a top 10 player in the league. He plays both sides of the ball. He's taken a step up in his game this year, like you mentioned earlier, which didn't seem possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin Durant and LeBron James are here for me. What's to say about those guys? They're so great. Sure, both of them have missed some time this season, and I can understand why you wouldn't have them here with missing time. But both of these guys, when they're on the court, they're winning basketball games. And I think Kevin Durant's like 23-0 or 23-1 in his last 24 games.
I think so.
Dating back to his time with the Nets. Kevin Durant's been amazing. LeBron's been amazing in his time this season. Steph Curry and De'Aaron Fox, we don't have to say too much about, as we talked about him already.
Yeah, and I have Anthony Davis. I have Anthony Davis here because he's held the tight. When LeBron was hurt, Anthony Davis really stepped up his game, and he did it for all of the time LeBron was hurt. I thought, AD would come and go, but he's really stepped up offensively and defensively. He's still playing like it, and that was the big question when LeBron came back. Can the guys around him still play the same? And they are. Credit to them. I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander here. Like I said before, he's been really dynamic this year. He's carrying a team that doesn't. If they don't have him, they have the number 1 pick locked and loaded. And Jaylen Brown, like you said, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have both taken a step up this year. It's any given night, they could be 1 or 2. Jaylen Brown could be the best player, or Jason Tatum could be the best player. We saw last year in the finals, Jaylen Brown was obviously the best player for the Celtics, and this year they, like you said, both taking that step up.
Right. Very quickly here, I was just looking again through that video. I had Willie Green as my head coach of the year. That's Zion's fault, not mine. Moving over to All-NBA third team, I have Shai and Jaylen Brown. You talked about them already. Great players, great seasons. Jaylen Brown, for me, it was kind of hard to leave him off the list. It's the biggest name we left off was Damian Lillard, right? As you guys are seeing our screens now. But for a guy like Jaylen Brown to average 27, 7, and 7 to not be on All-NBA is absurd on a team that's won 50 games. And I think Chi-Town 32 or whatever, OG over there on TikTok, he released a video where he said that since the NBA and ABA merger, 7 duos have made All-NBA in the same season. And he said that basically the secondary star, which in this case is Jaylen Brown, he's played the best out of any of those guys. That's including a young Kobe. That's including a young John Stockton right over there.
Klay Thompson, I'm sure, was on that list.
I'm sure, right? And it was Jaylen Brown's, when he's playing better statistically than any of those secondary stars in the past. For him to not make it this time is absurd. And yeah, we leave Dame off, but when the Celtics are winning 25 more games, it's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah, and I have De'Aaron Fox, who you talked already, Kevin Durant. Drew Holiday was a guard I put in there. I actually had Damian Lillard in here all the way up until this morning. I wanted to show Dame some love because he went on an absolute tear from about mid-February all the way till they shut him down for the season. But then I remember Drew Holiday. He's been that steady number 2 all season for Giannis. When Giannis has not had to play, Drew Holiday has stepped up. I believe Drew Holiday deserves that berth over Damian Lillard for that fact, and team record wise. I also left Steph Curry and Devin Booker off of my list. I didn't put Steph Curry because he did have those 2 injuries, and the Warriors have been up and down this season. Obviously, that's up for debate. Steph is still a great player. I wanted to show some other guys some love. And Devin Booker, same reason, injuries. Larry Markkinen makes out my third, and so does Sabonis. Those 2 have been sensational this year, especially Larry taking that step up, and Sabonis being a 1 or 2 star on that second seed Sacramento Kings team.
He's making that trade not look as bad.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
But Kawhi Leonard, surprisingly, he's played 55 games this year. You would not believe it if I told you that with the back-to-back load management that he does take, but he's played 55 games, and it's Kawhi Leonard. He's still averaging 36-6 or 36-5 or something. Kawhi Leonard's been on an absolute tear this season, and he gets my All-NBA third team because of that. Bam Adebayo, which now I'm regretting. I wish I had Larry Markkinen in here, but Bam Adebayo, he's still a great two-way player. He still has his inconsistency moments a lot, right? But maybe come playoff time, he can turn it back up as this Heat team typically does. And Anthony Davis rounds out my All-NBA third team. He's too big of a talent, even though this Lakers team's a 7 seed. It's crazy to say, hey, we're giving a 7 seed 2 top 15 players in the world, but Anthony Davis is too good of a talent to leave off, especially with the tears he's been going on all season.
Yeah, and another player I forgot about for that forward position, had he not got hurt, especially in this
Carmelo
season,
Anthony.
Was Paul George.
Oh, okay. All right.
Paul George, he kept that Clippers team afloat when Kawhi was out and hasn't been playing those back-to-backs. He was all-star this season. I just didn't give it to him, obviously, because of the injury he's had. He's had about 2, and that's a little ironic saying that I have Kevin Durant, who's had 2 injuries here as well. But when it came down to it, Kevin Durant is playing right now. Paul George is not.
Look, all I know is James Harden, Jaylen Brown, and Victor Wembanyama are going to be Rockets next year, and they're going to pick up Melo, right? Melo's going to go back there, and Melo's going to be an All-NBA player next season. At least that's the pipe dream. Moving over to all of the offensive, as we're not going to elaborate on that comment. We have basically we have our top 3 depoy candidates in Evan Mobley, Brook Lopez, and Jaren Jackson. We both have Drew Holiday, but we differ here in the guard position, and it's not a big difference. I had Marcus Smart here, but I took him out for Mikal Bridges, which in his time with the Brooklyn Nets in the second half of the season, he's been playing that 2 guard next to Spencer Dinwiddie. And Mikal Bridges, if you ask around the league, everybody says Drew Holiday's the best defender. The next guy they mention is Mikal Bridges, and that's coming from the superstars like Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, you name them. They're saying Mikal Bridges is one of their toughest defenders, and he's going to get my All-NBA first team here, even though he's switched teams.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I completely forgot about Mikal Bridges when I was making the list. I just know that Marcus Smart, he can be a difference maker. Yeah, obviously he won the Defensive Player of the Year last year. He can be a difference maker on defense when he's on the court. Obviously Drew Holiday and the 3 depoy runners are out there. I just, completely forgot about Mikal Bridges. That's it.
Moving over to second team, we both have Giannis, Bam Adebayo, and Alex Caruso. All great defenders in their own right. They both are, for Giannis and Bam, they're one of the best help defenders in the league. And Caruso is on that list, on that short list of guys that players hate to be defended by.
Yeah.
Caruso's 6'3", 6'4", which he doesn't look like. He looks like 6 foot 6'1", but
he might be 6'5", I think.
Is 6'5"? Yeah. I mean, like if you asked me, I'd say he was 6 foot. But he's 6'5", and he's guard. He can guard 1 through 4, right? At least that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And he's very pesty, and he, for the first half of the year, I think based off of the collection of advanced stats, he was the best defender in the league, at least, per the sources that we saw, right? But Alex Caruso, you guys can't go wrong. But who's your 2 guard? Well, you actually have a big man there in Brooklyn that I didn't have.
Yeah, I have OG Anunoby and Nick Claxton rounding out my second team. Nick Claxton, he was a depoy runner pretty much all throughout the season until Evan Mobley took that leap when he made about mid-February. Nick Claxton, he's a dynamic shot blocker, just like the other guys on that list. He's really good at rebounding. He can actually step out and guard about 2 through 5. He's really good and mobile. For a big man. And OG Anunoby, everybody has known that OG his calling card has been on the defensive side. He's been as far as called Baby Kawhi. He's really stout. He's about 6'7", 6'8", and he's every bit of 240, 245. He's strong. He can push you back from the paint. He can guard you on the perimeter. He's mobile enough to guard smaller players as well.
I also have Marcus Smart on my second team instead of first team like you. Same reasons you mentioned Depoy last year. Marcus Smart, when he's on the court, he's always one of the league's best defenders. He just missed some time this year, and that's why I gave the nod to Mikal Bridges. Anthony Davis, for me, since the All-Star break, the Lakers are the number 2 defense in the league, and that's a big part to Anthony Davis. He's missed some games here and there, but when he's on the court, this Lakers team, to advanced statistics, I guess, I would never have guessed this, but they're actually, when he's on the court, they're the best defense in the league. Yeah. And that's the talent that we all know Anthony Davis could be. That's why he's on my second team all defense. But that's going to do it for our All-NBA teams. I mean, it's a great year in the books. First time we've had an All-NBA, or I guess first time we've done an award show here as the 50th episode. Again, it is the 50th episode. We want to thank you guys for 50 great episodes. It started with me alone in the studio, trying to get by, right? Trying to get by and, writing a lot of notes to talk about. And now it's just kind of like show up and record. Yeah. Any last thoughts before we get out of here? Because next week we have a lot of basketball talk because the playoffs are right around the corner. Yeah,
this episode was really fun. Like you said, it's the 50th episode. I haven't been here for all 50 episodes, but
14 or 15, I think.
Yeah, it's been really fun since I've been on it. Like you said, next week we have our play-in preview and our playoffs preview. Definitely an exciting time in the league. A lot of anticipated play-in matches, who will and won't make the cut, and going into an anticipated first round, which should be really exciting this year especially.
Yeah, and then after that, for you football fans, we do have some more football content coming up. Not next week, but the following week as draft season is well underway, right? We're under 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. So that coverage will pick up as well. But until Thursday, until next Tuesday, rather, when we come back with the play-in preview and predictions, that's it. That's it for the show. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out, and let us know what you guys think down below.